We'll call the meeting to order at 4:01. Today's meeting is being held as a hybrid meeting. The special meeting was called for council to discuss the 2023 budget. Members of the public may attend the meeting in person at the Municipal Office at 153 McKellar Street, Glencoe. Today's meeting will be streamed live as well and recorded and published on the Southwest Middlesex YouTube channel. Before we begin, I'll give a brief land acknowledgement. We'll begin the gathering by acknowledging that the land upon which we meet is the traditional territory of First Nations people who have a long-standing relationship with the land, water, and region of Southwest Middlesex. We convey our respect to our Indigenous neighbors and thank them for their contributions to our culture, community, our past, and partnerships in the future. Council, is there any member of council declaring a pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof? Seeing none, we will proceed. Number 3 on the agenda is the budget presentation. Kristen, I have reviewed this, and Kristen's done an admirable job of it, and I think it's very timely. She'll discuss how the budget is built, the legislation behind it, and the county's impact and tax setting, the tax ratio agreements that we have, and it provides kind of a springboard to the discussions that we will have hereafter with respect to the budget. So without any further words, Kristen, take it away.
Thank you. So this is a presentation I usually just do once every 4 years for new counselors so that they kind of understand the process that you're going to go through. This is I like to think anyways, one of the biggest duties of your jobs as counselors is to decide how much money we're going to collect from our ratepayers and where we're going to spend it. So the budget is a requirement under the Municipal Act, and it says for each year, each local municipality shall, in the year or immediately or the immediate preceding year, prepare and adopt a budget including estimates of all sums required during the year for the purposes of the municipality, including debt payments, retirement funds, any commissioner body. In this year, because it's an election year, it'd be with your passing in 2023 for 2023. Typically, we try and do it in the fall of the prior year so that it's all set and ready to go. So as soon as January 1st hits, everything's adopted. The staff are aware of the projects that they're able to go ahead and pursue. But in an election year, slightly different. We do it a little bit later. So that's the one exception that's provided for in the Municipal Act. And we are not allowed to budget for any deficits. We have to balance each year. If there are adjustments from the preceding year, we have to include, allow for those adjustments in the current year. We use, in order to do that, we have a couple of different reserve accounts that we can adjust for to, if a project comes in significantly over budget in any one year, we can pull from reserves and then ideally replenish those reserves in the following year. So that's kind of a bit of an overview on how often we do this and what legislative authority requires it. So the process each year is usually I will meet with senior staff, give them a bit of a framework to deal with. We'll go through capital budget first. Colin, Greg, Kendra, they all tell me what they would like for their capital budgets. And we try and put those into a schedule. We determine staffing is the next big input, budget for all the regular operating expenses. And then depending on where we're at, we try and figure out how we're going to pay for all of it. And then from there, If it's too excessive, then we've got some decisions to make. So as far as capital goes, we use, I think the next slide is the asset management plan. So that is one of the requirements in a fairly new piece of legislation. Each municipality is required to have a listing of all of their assets, and we house them in citywide. We apply useful lives, service level ratings against them, and we use those to make the decisions on what roads and bridges and culverts, sidewalks, and so forth need to be replaced and when. So ideally, we can get to a point where we are able to replenish our assets with sufficient reserves in the bank according to the schedule of the asset management plan. Not many municipalities are quite there yet, and we are not there yet, but that's ideally something we can strive for in the future. So once we have established what money we can collect from outside areas other than tax, what grants we may have access to, and what expenses, operating capital expenses we're committing to for the year, we apply the county ratio. So the ratios are listed here. Residential is kind of the baseline with a ratio of 1. Multi-res is 1.77 almost. Farm is 0.25, as well as managed forest. Commercial 1.15, industrial 1.75, and so on and so forth. So we determine based on total amount that we need and back into it based on the ratios and the valuations provided by MPAC to determine the total tax to be levied on each property. And we do the same for the county and school board. So they let us know what their rates are going to be. So the tax bill, you probably have seen your own tax bills that we send to everybody, includes what we're collecting for us, but it also includes what we collect for the county and school board. And then we in turn turn it over to them quarterly. You'll see some of those on the vouchers. You'll see every 3 months large payments that we're making to each of the school boards in the county. Typically, so we deal with the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation. You'll see the acronym MPAC quite a bit. They provide us with approximate property valuations, which we use to, like your taxes are based on, it's just a multiple of your property evaluation times the tax rate, and that's what you pay. That's what we collect from you in taxes. So they determine they've got quite a bit of information on their website to tell you how they kind of determine your property value based on sales in the area. And they phase that increase in over 4 years. So in the past, they have always operated on a 4-year phasing cycle. That has been halted with COVID. So they're trying to give homeowners a bit of a break in that. So that makes life a little bit more difficult for us, because what that means is that we're going to have to increase taxes more because we're increasing excess costs, or we're experiencing excess costs, sorry. So rather than we're increasing the rate for everybody rather than the values of the properties increasing to provide us with more income in that way. So you can see in this schedule here what we've received from each class for the last 4 years in just increased assessments. So values of properties that are going up or brand new properties in the area. So overall, we've collected an extra $798,000 from our tax base. And you can see in 2021, it decreased down to 60,000. There's some of the effects of COVID. Usually if we see about an increase of 300,000 a year, it's gone down to 60,000 and then 168,000 for 21 and 22. You can see the biggest, on the far right, the allocation between the areas of growth, really. So residential is picking up 63.4% of that increased assessment. And the next biggest one is farm at 30.92%. If anybody has any questions, just, I know what you're gonna ask. The increase, correct, yes. Absolutely, yes. Yes, yes. This is all the slides I'm going to show you. It was easier for me. I tried presenting it in a couple different ways. This is just incremental year over year increases. So really just to show you, and I only picked the last 4 years to show you the change, just because that's the change in the council term. And obviously the numbers in red are decreases in revenue. So when we start to go through the budget, there are a few things that we are just told what we're going to have to spend. So we're given an annual Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund allocation. That's unconditional funding, but that has been decreasing. I can show you other schedules year over year for quite a while. There's quite a history behind that, which we can go into another day. But the Conservation Authority, and again, that mechanism is likely changing too. Fire services from other municipalities, which is largely based on their budgets. So Alvingston fire budget, which is why we have a representative from our council sitting on their fire board to assist in those decision makings, because it does have a financial impact for our ratepayers. OPP services, we are just told what we're going to pay. And insurance, I put that in here because we have to have insurance, and there are only a handful of providers that deal with municipal policies, and that has been a significant increase. You can see it's increased 123 and almost $124,000 over the last 4 years. So if we take into account the assessment income that we've had over the last 4 years of 798,000, and just subtract off the things that we really don't have any choice in at all, we're down to a $545,000 increase. So that's what we have over the past 4 years to keep all of our operations going without including a cost of living increase. So that's about 136,000 annually over those 4 years. Yes. 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 This is just the increase over the prior years. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I wish that was the total. No, this is just the increase. It's grown. So you can see OPP has actually gone down in the last couple of years too, I think, which is nice for us. So there's a lot of information in this slide here, but I tried to, in the next 2 slides, I had to break it down. So really over the last 4 years in each of these areas, you can see where we've had to increase taxes or whether we've freed up tax room in either decreasing expenses or increasing revenue. So I kind of went by kind of functional area in here. So with all of this, you can see that overall we've had to raise $782,000 additional funds in the budget in order to balance the budget with all of the income and expenses, which equates to about a 7.8% increase over the last 4 years on a cost of living over the last 4 years of 13.7%. There's a lot going on there. And then some of the larger projects that we were able to undertake in the last 4 years were obviously the biggest ones, daycare, arena renovation, train station deck, playground, overhaul of some of the lighting. We've got some new softwares, the audiovisual in the council chambers, truck, backhoe, pavement edger, snow blower, various road works and bridge and culvert works, generator, air compressor and rescue truck for fire services, roof on the app and storage garage, salt dome roof replacement, roof and HVAC on this building here, a pool heater, and historical society roof. So really, at the end of the day, we need to raise costs. Don't very often go down. Usually everything's going up. The cost of all the materials for the roads are going up. The costs of just providing our baselines of service are going up. So it's going to be your job to balance what you would like the increase to be and how much excess funds we can generate with where you would like to see service levels within the municipality over the next 4 years. Some things we can do right away. Some things it might be a longer term project that we need to phase in over a few years. But I can try and provide you the analysis as best I can in different forms if you'd like to see it, going through the budget process. So the next step would be I'll bring you the capital items and then maybe present by department. We've done it a couple different ways in the last few years, but if council could give me a bit of a target with what to work for, then I can try and get us within those limits and then bring it back to council for their approval with details of what staff have, what's on their wish lists or to maintain their levels of service as they are now.
Thank you, Kristen. It is going to be a challenging job this year, and we are all aware of it. Inflation figures are what's the most current inflation figure? Are we nearing 7%, 8%?
Right
Around 7%. I think just to start off the discussion, in reference to your question, it is up to council to see what they want that tax rate increase to be. I find it very valuable. We don't want to regress as a municipality, and even I have some aversions to being status quo. I like to see us progress to some degree for the benefit of future inhabitants and our youth in the area, that we progress to some degree. That being said, I find it extremely valuable to know what the tax rate increase is of surrounding comparable municipalities. I can think of Adelaide, Metcalfe, North Middlesex. There's others in Elgin County, Dutton, Dunwich. I always find those are good comparables. And at what point will you be able to provide to us these comparative, in order for us to make a comparative analysis? At what point do you envision that?
I can poll our surrounding municipalities to see. I know some of them are still in the budget process right now too, so they don't have everything quite finalized. But I can bring that with the next presentation, what information I can find.
Okay. All right. Council, any questions you'd like to ask Kristen through the chair? Councillor Vink, go ahead.
My first question to Kristen is, I know I've already asked this, and this is just for taxpayers' purposes. When are we going to get a final report on the daycare? I realize I'm all for the daycare, but I still think taxpayers have a right to know how much they actually put into the daycare. And we've never seen a report on that. So I know at first it was going to be.
Yeah, just a moment. The question is a sincere question, Martin. I know it is. It's just deviating a little bit from the procedures of this meeting, but there are substantial revenues that are come from that daycare as well. And Kristen, I don't want you to spend a lot of time on this. If you can bring it back to us, or if you have a quick answer to give Councillor Vink currently on that of the current status.
Okay, I can put together a report for you if you'd like. It would be, so staff would stay within the amount that was budgeted, that council effectively allowed them to spend. If anything deviated from that, that would have come back to you to approve if we needed any change orders done at that time. So I guess my quick answer is it would have been what was budgeted. Unless, yes. Now we did get $2 million for that project as well.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Vink. It was a good question, and if any further information comes forth, I'll certainly make sure that you get it, Council as well. Kristen, we see dirt moving in our municipality in several areas, both in the east, the west, and in the south. What impact is that going to have on our budgeting process? That is assessment that we cannot bank on just yet, but we hope that it'll be forthcoming over the course of the next 36 months. How do you handle that? How do you use that as a tool in setting a groundwork for advancement of the municipality?
There's a lot that goes into that question. I would ideally like to set us up. I think we're just starting to see some development happening here. Ideally, development pays for development, and we are not currently set up to with that type of infrastructure. So ideally, we can implement development charges in this coming year so that the developers are paying to upgrades, make sure that our water system can handle their development, make sure our sewer system can handle their development. And, if we need to extend our fire service area, those types of things, we need to build that in. The additional revenue, effectively, the additional revenue is going to come at a bit of a cost too, that it's going to increase the road network that we have to maintain a bit. It's going to increase costs as well as increase revenue. So and we want to work towards making sure that our facilities are equipped to handle the influx of people. So the new daycare, the revised arena, new playgrounds. So I think we're moving in the right direction to attract people to the area, and the homes are being built to house them. So I think that we're going to have to make some decisions on infrastructure. And I presumed I was going to get that question from one of you too. That is, so water and sewer budgets are not done under the municipal umbrella, so to speak. They're technically separate companies. So water pays for water, sewer pays for sewer, and the municipal tax rate pays for roads, bridges, sidewalks, storm sewers, fire, OPP, those types of things. So those are dealt with somewhat separately, except in the case of Wardsville sewer, which sometimes we have to, we put some money into from the tax rate, but generally water is supposed to pay for itself. So for those projects, ideally we're generating enough out of water and sewer revenue to pay for those. So we're going to have to look into, for some grants. We might have to take out some loans, but we do have the studies in place that tell us what we need to undertake in those areas. So staff are going to have to bring that back to council too.
Just one more question, if I could, council. You mentioned the word take out some loans. Could you explain to council the avenue of financing we have through the county
Yes.
and the rate at which they charge?
Yes. So municipalities have what's called an annual repayment limit that they have to stay within. So we're not allowed to take out too much debt. So we are comfortably within those limits. We don't have a lot in the form of external debt at all. We've been able to finance it all internally. We often do what's called debenturing, which means we're borrowing from our own reserves to raise it from the tax rate in a future year to then repay it back into reserves. So we're loaning to ourselves effectively for some of these bigger projects. But the county does have a program in place whereby they will extend loans for certain growth areas. You have to fall into certain criteria, but and they are interest-free loans. So you're allowed to have 2 at any one time. We just paid off of our last 2, which were, for water and sewer programs as well. So that would be, I think, the first avenue I would be looking into for undertaking these water and sewer projects, is getting some county loans.
And we can, with the limit on that is what, $1 million?
I think it's 2.1 last I checked. So yeah, that won't get us, it won't get us all the way there. I think with the, we'll be looking at easily double or triple that for these projects.
Okay, yeah, Councillor Haggett, please go ahead.
So there's a difference between want and need.
Yes.
So do they direct senior staff to say, give an explanation what is needed? Like wants are always good, but I mean, it's what we need.
Yes. My
With an
direction,
explanation.
yes. So my direction is usually what do we need to increase service levels and what do we need to maintain service levels? So, and that's what staff should be providing to council is here's what we need to stay where we're at. But if you want to bring it up to here, this is what we would need to get there. So council, establishes service levels and staff will tell you what we need to get there. And ideally that's how it works. So I will endeavor to present any changes in a manner that would give you those criteria.
Anybody else got a question? I like to be competitive. I like to have a competitive tax rate. And yet at the same time, I'd like to be a competitive municipality, an attraction. And you've got the micro and macro economics. On the macro side, sometimes a few wants are not necessarily a bad thing, because if you're going to sell 350 houses in Southwest Middlesex, you have to have a reason for those buyers to come in and want to buy them. And they're on the macro side, you've got some extremely important benefits. It keeps your schools open, it keeps your business district viable, it keeps your places of worship open, it increases your tax revenues, and it also helps your recreation base in terms of minor hockey and sports and things like that. So there is some tremendous benefits. And I think when you look at daycare and you look at the arena and you look at the parks that we've done, sometimes what may appear to be a fringe element may be an extremely important marketing tool. And just the only other thing I'd like to perhaps comment on, Kristen, and then I'll finish, is that we want to be equitable in our distribution of money in the municipality. And we want to make sure that it's not Glencoe-centric. I know Glencoe is an extremely important commercial hub. Very often you get more bang for the buck in Glencoe with the tax base, but we certainly have to be considerate of the Appin community, the Warsaw community, and the infrastructure of the rural districts of Ward 1 and Ward 3. So we want to make sure that in this budget that everybody's getting a piece of the pie. Yeah, I think it's important.
I agree. I think that staff look to council, like I said, to establish service levels that they want, but also, like you said, every residents measure their value in a community in different ways. And that, in my mind, is what we need from council to our residents want more recreation? Do they want, or what areas do they want us to focus in? So you guys have your ears to the ground, in those areas, and can kind of advise staff where you see the community evolving to. And I think from a staff perspective, we try and make decisions based on Southwest Middlesex as a whole. But that's why we still have a ward system here too, is that so that each area is represented fairly.
Yeah, Councillor Vink.
Mayor Allen, so in this budget, I would like to see a small part of the budget go towards tar and chip. And I'm not a big proponent of having a widespread tar and chip, but part of the reason is to make everybody feel that they're part of Southwest Middlesex. And I've already had discussions with the mayor and with Mike. Two of the areas that I think just small areas to begin with is Moses Estates, just past the first house. I don't look at all the way from Haggerty Road, just Moses Estates to Clackham Road. And then the other area for Mark's area and Don's area from the Silver Dove to Thames Road. So these are just two smaller projects that maybe we can start budgeting for.
Good point, Councillor Vink. When you look at many of our municipalities just north of us, not very far, a significant amount of their roads are tar and chip, and at the same time, there are people that like their gravel, as you know, and gravel roads easy to maintain. You grade it, and it's done. But it certainly would have to be a phased approach. We have to have a beginning somewhere. And the two examples that Martin has given, we have had chats and come up with these particular names, and there may be more. What we did at Pratt Siding is a prime example of that. A small piece of tar and chip there from concession to the railway tracks just seems to clean up that area a little. And I think that's what Martin's looking for in these other areas.
Yeah, for sure. Staff can look at that and put that in the budget. That's a good example of decisions with the asset management plan now, that this wouldn't be just a today decision. Now, doing that would put that into the asset management plan. So ideally, the purpose of that plan is to say, how are you paying for it now? But also, we need you to put about this, say it's good for 20 years. We need you to put 1/20th of that away now every year to replace in 20 years when it needs to be fixed again. So I guess what I'm saying is you're signing up for a cost now, but you're also encumbering yourself for the future too in costs. So anything that we add to assets in that manner becomes part of an ongoing replacement program. And I think Old Drive last year was in the budget at 880,000, I want to say. So just, it absolutely can be done. Anything can be done, but we just need to weigh the, the pot of money we're working with. We need to, make sure that we are apportioning it to, the places where council deems it most advantageous.
Yeah, I think we're probably coming to a close, but in closing my comments too, I said that twice, didn't I? You often refer to X number of dollars results in a tax increase of 1%. It was around $90,000 at one time. Every $90,000 you spend, council can have the effect of a 1% tax increase. You don't buy a lot for $90,000. You hardly equip a truck to plow snow for $90,000. And is that, those numbers are still relevant?
It would be in that ballpark. I'd have to recalculate, and I'll bring that back to you with the next presentation. But yes, it would be, even if we are closer to 100,000, that's.
Council, anything else?
I don't have anything else. Do we have any direction on what? Yes. Do you want to make a motion on that, Martin? Sorry.
I'd like to know what that motion is. I just want to feel comfortable on it before I vote for it. Are we asking for it that it be approved, or that an investment that we're inquiring, that we ask that it be part of the budget presentation? Yeah. Yeah, look into it. Okay, as part of the budget presentation that we look into it.
I agree with you, Mayor Allen, that I've talked to people who were campaigning. They don't want cars up through the whole road,
Yeah,
because cars are going
Yeah.
100 kilometers an hour. So that's
Yeah.
why
Yeah, it
smaller
affects speed. Yeah.
smaller areas,
But,
way to go. But
and the one on Switzer, the business establishment that you mentioned is they pay taxes, and that is quite a little community out there. Like, actually, it's a real little community out there. It's worth going on and taking a drive around. And also, it provides an affordable housing element to some who don't want a two-story, 2,000 square foot house. So yeah, it is. I think, Martin, I'll go ahead and make that motion. I'd be very comfortable hearing it, that it be added to the budget process for presentation to council.
okay, thank you, Mayor Allen. So I'd like to make a motion that we investigate a tar and chip plan for Moses Estates to Clackham Road, and from Silver Dove Estate to Thames Road.
Yes, Kristen, would you like to clarify that, or
If it would be okay with Martin, maybe we could just leave it open and say direct staff to make recommendations on a tar and chip program, and not list specific roads just yet. And then we can bring back amounts that we could include in the budget. So if we raise, 500,000 for a tar and chip program, from there staff can bring back recommendations on what roads specifically are done. Is that okay?
Oh, yes.
If we
Yeah,
just leave okay.
I think so. And for your comfort, Councillor Bink, those two examples you gave won't be forgotten. So we'll make sure. Kristen, the gas tax would certainly be applicable to that type of thing as well. Is that correct? The gas tax check we get.
Yes. My thought would be that we'll have to likely direct that in its entirety to sewers.
Oh, sewers. Okay. Oh, I didn't know.
Water
I
and
thought it was
sewers.
just roads and sidewalks.
No, any infrastructure. It's
Any
really just for
infrastructure, okay.
infrastructure. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. And when will we know? When has the province given you any idea when we know what our Ontario municipal funding will be? When will it come through?
Yes, I have. I can bring all of that
Okay.
back. Some of it's modestly increased and some of it's decreased.
Okay. I saw a hand to my left here, Don. Yes, go ahead, please.
Yes, Martin, maybe you could add Crystal Lane in on that too, if you wouldn't mind.
Yes, I can add it, and so can you,
Yeah. Don, I think that's an excellent suggestion too.
Well, the houses are pretty well filled up now. There's 2 or 3 lots left.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Yeah, it's, and there's quite a bit of assessment out of there too, and, yeah, that's a good point, Councillor McCollum. Yes, Kendra, please go ahead.
I just need a seconder for the motion.
Yes, I realize that. Yep, okay. And, I'm gonna ask for a seconder before I take any more questions. Amy, are you seconding that motion? Okay, thanks very much. And, any questions, council? Yes, Deputy Mayor Schuldice.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. Will staff be able to get us these budgeted prices? We won't incur any engineering fees to get these quotes.
Quotes on the tar and chip?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to more just, we could go about this 2 ways. We could get costing ahead of time. What my thought was to get some direction on council on what tax rate they would like, and then put in a chunk of money towards it, kind of like we did with the sidewalks. Just set aside funds in the budget and then follow through with the project planning after the fact. And that way we won't actually, so to answer your question, I wasn't planning on incurring any costs in advance of this. But on the other hand, I wouldn't have good costing for you either.
Yeah.
It would be really what the tax rate will allow is what we can set aside.
Kendra.
Through the mayor to Deputy Schuldice, I think that's partially why I'm going to leave the recommendation as the tar and chip program, kind of to see where you guys come up with the amount and then how we can allocate that amount to where you'd like to see it.
We also have some fairly current numbers, Deputy Mayor too, on Old Drive and access as well. That's a fairly current project. Not that it was perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but Councillor McGill.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. Yeah, you took my point there, I think, because I was saying, yes, I'm going to support this motion, but at the same time, since I've been on council, one of the biggest disappointments I've had has been some of the tar and chipping that's been done. And, it's bad as a council when people say, Mark, after you finish the road, it's worse than before after you fix the road, it's worse than it was before you fixed it. And all I can say is, well, hopefully we can do something to fix that next year, but I don't know.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. It's been moved and seconded. Last call for questions. All in favor that we include an investigation into the tar and chip process at the beginning? Carried unanimously by council, and I like that word unanimously. Anything else? Yes, Councillor Vink.
Just one thing, Mayor Allen's question, I wasn't quite clear what her answer was. Infrastructure. Tar and chip, not infrastructure.
Sorry, absolutely, yes.
Okay, so wouldn't the gas tax fund, not saying we have to put it there, but we could, no?
Yes, absolutely, we could.
Okay.
We could, yes.
Yes, Councillor Haggett.
So when you were talking about the sewer, right? Are we talking about the one in Michael, the twin one?
Correct, yes.
And it's going to be, because if we're making motions, it needs to be done.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want the housing to grow, it needs to be dealt with. I just want to put it out there. I thought we were doing this at another time.
Yes, this would not be included in the municipal budget per se, because it should be funded through sewer revenue. However, the one decision that would affect the municipal portion of the budget is if we choose to direct all of the gas tax funding, and this is where I was kind of going with that. So either we could direct the gas tax funding to roads, bridges, culverts, tar and chip, things of that nature, or we could direct it to the sewer. And I think the combined Victoria project was in and around 8 million. So, and I think the primary project for water was about 5 million. Don't quote me on those, but that's a lot of money to try and source and then pay for. So,
And the trouble is, good is the user pay system. So, you know,
right.
your rates, your water rates and your sewer rates are going to be comparatively higher than other municipalities. And I think all of council, including the mayor and the deputy mayor, get complaints on this regularly about the cost of water. And I know Councilor Gill has very rightfully and correctly assumed that it's not in the rural areas. They certainly don't want it in their taxes. They're glad it's a user pay system, and as it should be. But we have to remain competitive. Just to formulate, to assist our treasurer, which she has respectfully asked council that what is the tax rate we're comfortable with, and it's a 4.25. I'd like to get this out of 5, and this really helps Kristen. In fact, she's even come to me in the past and said, "What can you live with?" And I'm not proud of this fact, but as mayor, I've only supported 2 of the past 4 budgets in terms of the final vote, and we've been close, to agreement. I'm not saying that they were not good budgets and they were, proved very viable, but we want to be competitive. And what do you feel is comfortable? What I feel I would consider with interest, I could say, a 2.9% increase would be extremely comfortable for me. How does that sit with the rest of council? And again, I don't want to know the comparative analysis on the municipalities behind us. That would be very challenging for Kristen to follow and formulate in a budget with a 7% inflation rate to have a tax rate increase of 2.9. But it would stabilize their service level, if not increase it just minimally. But I'm sure there's other councils. I'm just trying to pull some conversation out of you folks. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. Personally, I would like to see the capital presentation before we really decide where we're at. And I just wondered at this stage last year for the councilors, what did we start out with and then what did we end up with last year?
I think I started at, I'd have to go back and look at the initial presentations, but I think we started at a close to 5 and we ended up at 2.53. So I wasn't sure if we could get even a range, like staff be directed to bring back a budget with a tax rate increase between 3 and 5% or 2.5 and 5. And that way there's still some wiggle room for councillors if they want to remove things or, add things in. But
yeah, it's my purpose to chair this meeting and not to direct the decision making, Mark. So I'm looking for input from councillors. Mark, Councilman Gill, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I'm looking at the chart from the budget presentation that gives the tax rate increases for the previous 4 years and the cost of living. That's the bottom 2 lines on that chart. So I think in 2019, tax rate increase was 2.3%. But that year, there was MPAC reassessed people's properties and increased the values of people's properties. So we got extra tax revenue from that. But in 2021 and 2022, there was no reassessment of people's valuations. And we still came in with a 1% tax increase in 2021, and then a 2.53% tax increase in 2022. Now we're going into a 3rd year when MPAC is not going to increase people's assessed values. So 2.9% would be nice, but if we keep going like this, we're going to be, with those kind of tax rate increases, we're going to be decreasing people's level of service. Because there's a lot of things that go up in value we have no control over, like, salt, sand, gravel, all kinds of things. Insurance is way up 18% last year and projected to go up quite a bit again this year. So there's the tax rate increase we'd like to have, and then there's what's realistic, you know?
I think also Kristen and I have chatted about it. I believe it was today. It was a pretty crazy day in my office, Kristen, but we were talking about some of the new homes and the servicing costs that these people are going to incur with higher interest rates and higher property prices. And the effect is, I could say the word phenomenal. It's, there is a responsibility to maintain our level of service and perhaps improve, but at the same time, there's a comfort zone that the electorate will, that we have to consider with the electorate. We want them to be able to make those mortgage payments. We want them to be able to feed their families and clothe their families and have some form of modest recreation. And those are factors that we have to consider too. So I go back that if we're going to sell Southwest Middlesex as a community, we have to be competitive. But it's a Rubik's Cube. We have to keep twisting it until we find the right position. And Mark, even a 2.9% increase is not going to, it's going to offer some discomfort on trying to maintain service levels. I don't disagree with your statement at all. But are we aggressive enough in finding funding? Is there someone that actually is on staff that religiously seeks funding opportunities from the various levels of government?
That would be me.
Okay, and that's part of your daily process, is it?
Yes,
Your daily process.
yes, yes.
Councillor Choi, I apologize for keeping you waiting there. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with Deputy Schuldeis. I feel like I would like to see the numbers before I can actually put a percentage. What our goal would be. I think seeing those numbers would help us have a more realistic sight on what number we'll land on. So I'm not ready to put anything forward yet.
Well, yes, go ahead.
I can compile what staff have offered and bring that. The next step would be the capital presentation, so I can bring that back to councillors. If we just think of the theory of what cost of living increases mean, really it means that, like Councillor McGill said, our costs of gravel and salt and sand and all of the inputs into the municipality, in theory, are going to go up about 6 to 7% in the coming year. So that's not to say that we can't get to a 2.9, but it may involve difficult decisions or reallocation of funds from where they're currently being allocated.
Okay, we got a lot of work ahead of us. So does our treasurer. Yeah. Okay, yeah, last question, Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. To Kristen, I just want to back up on Joel, and I'm sure Ed agrees with that. If I recall, the new line from Victoria Pumping Station to the lagoon was either 2 million if you were going to twin it, or 2.5 million. And so I think there's a real necessity to it, and something that you have to put into the plans to back up what Joel is saying in order to be eligible for grants. And so that's something that we need to look at so for grant purpose.
Well, guess I'll be on the phone to Monty pretty soon.
My plan is to bring that on the capital presentation just to show that it's firstly the costs involved in it and that it's on our radar, and that way the public is also aware that it's necessary and what costs are involved, but it won't include likely how we're going to pay for it just yet. Because I'm hoping that we can get some grants. It's going to involve grants, ideally maybe different kinds of grants too, maybe OCIF, as well as gas tax, hopefully other external grants, and likely some loans as well.
Yes, Amy, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Is that something that we could bring a delegation forward at AMO to get funding or help possibly with the water and sewers?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Chat with Minister Clark. Chief Sewell, I'm negligent not to welcome you to the meeting. Thank you very much for being here. And have you got a wish list a mile long on the fire department? We spent some serious money on the station and on equipment over the term of the last council. And
I do have some needs, I guess I'll put them, as we move forward. And predominantly there'll be three capital needs off the top of my head right now. And most significant will be the SCBA replacement. So for the health and safety, our SCBAs are a number of years old. So that'll be the big ask. But I've worked with Kristen in the past, and we'll work to a common ground and bring our needs forward. And council's always worked with me over the last couple of years, so I have no issues with that. And it's the council's fire department, and I'm just happy to run it and give you my recommendations. So that's really where I stand right now with my capital items, and I'll have a conversation with Kristen, and we'll go from there.
we look forward to that, Chief. Thanks very much. Yes, go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Sorry, it's the self-contained breathing apparatus that our firefighters wear for the air containment on their back. And so we're looking at, we have 25 that are significantly in need of replacement. They're safe at this point, but they definitely need to be replaced moving forward. So 25, yeah, for both stations. So breathing is important, yes. Thanks.
Kind of mandatory. Yeah. Okay, Councilor, is there anything else? And Kendra, thank you very much for sticking with us on this. We appreciate your work very much. Doesn't go unnoticed. You're kind of a silent partner there. Instead of the chair adjourning this meeting, I will ask council to adjourn it. Yes, Kendra, before we do. Yes, the confirming bylaw. There is a bylaw before you to confirm the meeting of council. Was a mover and seconder. Deputy Mayor, moved, seconded. Councilor Myers, questions? All in favor? Approved? Yes, you certainly can. Go ahead, Mark.
I know the last 4 years in a row, we always got a binder to start the budget process. It was kind of nice to have something in print to go through to start with. And you're planning on doing that again, are you?
If council wishes, I can absolutely do that.
I think that's an excellent idea, Mark. Yeah, I'm sure there won't be any objections to that. Yeah, Mike.
That is correct.
Well, it depends how fast you go line by line.
I think we
gotta
had
do it right.
dedicated budget rulers. Like for real.
Okay, I think Mark put a request in as a motion to staff to provide binders for council. Well, you don't? Okay, good. All right. All set. Last question, any more? Okay, I have a mover and a mover to adjourn the meeting. Mark, seconder. Martin,